So I guess the first thing we need to talk about is how it's back in 2015. It's the drone Wild West. Once again, you can fly anywhere and do anything you want because DJI removed all its geofencing and we can do whatever we want, right?
No. Yeah, everybody thinks that, it seems, but no.
Yes, and there are people posting videos of themselves testing this, and you're going to get in trouble. Don't do that. So before you say any of your legalese, I have a theory on why DJI decided to do this. And that is
I'm interested.
Liability. Until now, I'm guessing that the first line of defense against flying where you're not supposed to would be if your drone tells you can't launch or fly at that place. And a lot of people will just use that and nothing else. They won't check sectional charts or any other app or do any other due diligence. If their drone says it's okay to fly there, then it's okay. And so DJI doesn't want that responsibility. They want to put the onus back on the owner and the FAA. And that would relieve them from liability of someone flying in an area where the drone said it was okay, but it was not okay. Am I right or wrong?
I will say you are likely very wrong.
Oh, dear.
Because if that were the case, then they would have removed geofencing quite a while ago, right?
Yeah.
Instead, look at the lobby that came through with the NDAA, right? And in trying to pass a drone ban, one of the lobbying arguments for the drone ban was to say DJI has geofencing technology that allows them to, one, shut down all drones and make them inoperable.
Yep.
Or two, and they were perverting this, right? They could force all drones to go and attack critical infrastructure. They could literally say, any drone that fires up, you're going to return to home at a particular location. Here's the geofence coordinates of a particular area. Go there. What? That's what Skydio came through and lobbied. That was part of the report that was in front of Congress in the subcommittee that was considering the drone ban for DJI. They literally perverted the entire interest, the entire goal of geofencing. And so I think that here's a situation where DJI said, okay, no one else in the industry has geofencing. We were trying to do this to be helpful. In fact, this came out of, what was it, Niv Stovinsky or what have you, over in Israel. You may recall this back in, I want to say 2017. He was flying a drone within a few hundred feet of a passenger airplane landing in Israel. He ended up going to jail for it. I think he got fined quite a bit, but immediately after that incident, DJI came out and said, all right, we're under pressure by the U.S. government. We need to shut things down around critical infrastructure, around airports. And so they made it a mandatory upgrade for every DJI drone. So you were forced to go into that geofence at that time. So here's kind of reversal of that. All
yeah,
right?
and
nobody
why?
else has it.
Why?
Yeah, so I think it's now interesting, right, that the onus is upon the pilot. It always had been upon the pilot, but the onus is upon the pilot to go look for your flight restrictions, to go look for where you can and can't fly. The geofence never really matched up to that anyway, right? So controlled airspace is typically around 5 miles outside of an airport. But the geofence was typically about 3 miles within an airport's radius, and they had the extending aprons for arrivals and departures that extended outside of controlled airspace for unlocked zones. So it never really truly matched up anyway. If they had a TFR, if the FAA issued a TFR, the DJI geofence would not necessarily catch up and let you know that you were in a TFR unless you were internet connected between the time that the FAA issued the TFR and the time that you had connected to fly.
Right. It seems like DJI's geofencing was always an overabundance of caution. For instance, on non-towered airports where it's perfectly legal to fly, the app would always say, nope, you're at an airport. Or you could opt out. That's why I think it's a liability issue on the part of DJI. They don't want to have the responsibility of policing all of that when we should be doing it ourselves. We don't need a Chinese entity policing our airspace for us.
Well, and that's always been the argument of all the pilots, right? They were tired of getting unlocks to be able to fly in places where they had approval to fly. And no other manufacturer had the DJI geofence, right? So if you went to Autel, you were free of a geofence. Do whatever you want, where you want. Now, that was a choice by a lot of pilots that said, hey, I don't want to have that restriction in place for me. But it was also a choice for a lot of people that said, I don't get LAANC anyway. So I don't want to be locked down in this area where I technically would be locked down anyhow.
Right.
So this does create a dual-edged sword, right? We want to be able to have an industry that operates according to standards, and yet here you have a situation where the geofence is removed. Any yahoo who previously might have been locked down and would have gone, oh, I'm not going to go bother with an unlock because I don't want to go through all the process, Well, now they're just going to fly, and they'll fly illegally.
There's nothing to stop them, and they would think that they have permission. A lot of people don't have the depth of knowledge that our community does about these regulations. So they're just going by what the drone tells them on their app.
That's exactly it.
And no further.
And we've always had that thought of, well, somebody just goes to the local Best Buy, what have you, and grabs a drone and goes and flies. They do so illegally. That becomes even more so the case now, right?
Right.
If geofencing had been across all manufacturers, right? FAA enforced, even congressional law enforced a geofence. Great, do that. But at the same token, tie it to LAANC, right? So if I make a LAANC request, that unlocks my geofence. It
was just a gesture from DJI to help appease all of the federal stuff and all the fear of the Chinese manufacturers. They're like, all right, we understand. We'll do this for you. It was DJI throwing us a bone, making it look like they're making an effort.
Well, it wasn't just them throwing a bone. They saw the writing on the wall. If they had not done the geofence at the time that they did, then more onus regulations were coming down.
Right. So now that they've removed that, what's going to happen? Is it just mayhem? Is it going to be more drones over New Jersey?
I do think that we are going to see a lot more drones in places that they shouldn't be.
Yeah.
I've been looking at some of the forums already, and people are saying, oh, well, this now means I can fly over 400 feet. Oh, this now means that I can fly 200 feet in a 0-foot grid.
No, you may not.
They see this as unlocking a potential avenue for them to fly. And it's not. That's the concern.
It's not even good news for the drone community.
No,
it's
not at all. I don't think.
No, there's going to be more drones flying around wildfires and hitting planes.
And we have to understand that currently the marketplace is probably 80% DJI drones. So this is an immediate impact, right? And this impact is not going away anytime soon. It places us in a position where we really have to, as a community, do self-policing. When you see somebody, flying in a place that they don't have LAANC authorization, you need to step up to the plate and educate them. Or if you hear somebody say, "Oh, I can do this in this particular area," that is a TFR, or that is a controlled airspace, correct them immediately. And we have a real trouble with that, especially online right now. Oh, you're the drone police. Well, if you don't have the drone police in place, you are not going to be able to fly drones much any longer.
And how will that happen? How will they just shut it down? Because we need the FAA. I have a joke cop car that says drone patrol on it. And it's funny because there's no enforcement arm of the FAA. But there should be, don't you think, rather than putting it on local authorities, or if they can't do that on a federal level, more education of local authorities.
Well, I think that's the big concern, is that the FAA has continued to say we are the sole jurisdiction for all airspace, navigable airspace. But I think there is a continued threat, especially with the elected officials, to say, look, we need to start regulating at the state and local levels lower altitude flights. And so there's great pressure on the FAA to release some of those low altitudes to other regulators. Well, that can be a patchwork quilt of ugliness, right? And no one in the drone community wants that. You be in a city and say, oh, I can fly here, and then go 2 miles away and be in a township that says you have to have a permit and you have to stay within, certain height distance, and you can have an offset of 2 feet. Well, that becomes real problematic.
It seems like the rollout of 107 has been forever, but it's been under 10 years.
Yeah.
And back in history, when they first rolled out the first stop sign, the public was like, what? You know what I mean? Like, the stop signs were ignored for a while. Traffic lights. It takes the public a while to get used to. So it just does seem to us in the hobby, it does seem like it's taking forever for them to get their shit together. And I'm talking about the FAA and the local authorities on all of this, because there is no one flat. There's no general understanding. The understanding is wavering from the private sector and hobbyists to 107 people to local cops and mayors in townships, all the way up to the federal level and the FSDO.
And that's two of the concerns that I have. One is there's a great schism right now, and it has been for quite some time, between Part 107 and 44809, right? That Part 107, it's the recreational flyers that are doing us in, right? And the reality is we see a lot of Part 107 that are flying illegally because they see their license as licensed to do as they please. That's troublesome. At the same token, we have recreational operators who say, look, we have restrictions that are completely unequal between the two parts. We need to open this thing up. I really wish there was unity in our own community to understand that they can coexist together and work together to make sure that we don't have those regulations come down and beat down the industry.
That's a new shirt. A new shirt available. I'll put a link in the description. Unity within the community.
Unity within the community. There we go.
That's good. And that's true. And this is going to continue to play out.
Yeah. And I think the other piece that we see is you have the FAA and you have local governments, and they're clashing, right? The FAA is saying, look, we can regulate drones. We do so, allow us to do so. You are our partners in that. And you have a lot of elected officials, and New Jersey's a great example of this, right? Oh, these are mystery drones. We can't prove anything.
Yeah.
But they're mystery drones. We need more regulation. We need to institute TFRs at all of our critical infrastructure. Whether or not there's anything going on, we just want your partnership with the FAA to do that. And they force the FAA to put all these TFRs in place. Well, number one, who's going to be the authority to regulate them? That's going to be on the local officials to see what's going on in that area and either arrest or detain operators. I'm anxious for the TFRs to go away and then do FOIA requests to all those communities to say, okay, who did you arrest? Who did you detain? And I'm pretty much guaranteeing that we're probably going to see no records found on any of them.
How many FSDOs are there? And how accessible are they to the public? Can you just walk in and ask them questions? I know they're in large cities. Maybe we need more of them.
Yeah, I think you're talking like 2 per state, mostly.
Okay.
So it's highly regional, and they are very small offices. You're not talking about hundreds of people in each office. So to have somebody and do the policing especially when you're talking a drone community, you need somebody on each and every street corner, especially in each and every major city, right?
Yeah.
That's not taking place. And it's
No.
not going to. There's no funding for
There's
that.
no money for that.
Mm-mm.
So that brings us nicely to the drone ban 2.0. Now with 10% more ban.
Yeah, or 20% or 40%.
Yeah.
Right?
What's going on with the new attempt at this ban?
So, this is kind of the really interesting part, that we've always seen the bans or legislation take place to try to enforce something in Congress, pushing through law. So that was the National Defense Act this past year. It was that way 4 years ago as well. We see this push in the FMRA, the Modernization and Reform Act for the FAAs. And that takes place every 4 years as well. Now we're seeing this new flavor, right? Baskin Robbins all over. You're going to have another flavor. This comes from the Commerce Department, and it's an advance notice of proposed rulemaking, which is a little bit different than notice of proposed rulemaking. So here what they're asking for is public opinion on 50 different questions. It is extensive. They're asking for you to kind of give some definitions. What kind of things do you see are critical infrastructure? What kind of things define what is a small UAS? So they're asking those questions, but it's all pointing towards, at some point, they will have a rule that they want to put in place that they'll ask for public information as well to put that into effect.
Can we answer those questions for them?
Yes, we can. And we want to.
Yes.
At the same token, you don't want to just rush out and blurt out your answers, right? This is 50 questions. We have until March 4th to answer them. And we want, as a community, to get together and say, here's our talking points, right? This is our chance to lobby to say, here's why you don't want to do this. Here's what's stupid about this.
Yeah. Is it going to matter as much as remote ID did?
Well, because
I felt like I had no effect on that. No effect.
Yeah, you did though. So if we remember remote ID, one of the major pieces of remote ID was to say you had to be internet connected, right? And the community waved the flag and they said, look, I'm in places, Alaska. For me, northern Michigan, if I go to the UP of Michigan, internet connection, yeah, right. It's not happening.
Okay, so
the FAA backed away on that requirement because
it did matter.
The community said, look, that's not possible.
Are you telling me that we matter?
Suddenly, yes.
Isn't
these incredible.
So these 50 questions that they're being asked by the government, right?
Yes.
Can I put a link in the description here where people can find all this stuff?
Indeed.
Okay, and what is the deadline for this?
March 4th is the deadline, and it's talking about the risks involved with UAS, especially in regards to critical infrastructure, things that they see are important. They want to understand what are undue and unacceptable risks. And so when you approach this, right, write down each and every question, and you're going to be answering for each and every one. Don't look at this as, I will answer one question and then I'll do another one at a separate date and another one. I would answer these all together and make them one large document. Sorry, it is 50.
50. Now, how long can the answers be?
As long as you want.
Can we have ChatGPT do them for us?
You could. That'd be interesting, right?
Wouldn't it?
I do want to say that when we make our talking points, it's going to be multiple areas that we're going to cover. And I will share those as soon as I get mine complete. The idea is we don't want to have everyone do the same form letter, right? Because if you do that, the FAA reads it, or sorry, in this case, it's the Department of Commerce reads it once and goes, we have another one of the
duplicates.
same.
They'll reject it.
Toss.
Right. Is there a bill name or something that we can be on the lookout for, or?
because this is not legislative, right? There's no bill, so this never goes to a vote.
Oh, that's shitty. This is like kind of backhanded, isn't it?
This is very backhanded.
Those sneaky government bastards.
Isn't it something?
Oh,
yeah. So in this case, right, they go for the advance notice of rulemaking. They're asking the questions.
mm-hmm.
They'll get the responses. They'll work through those, and then they'll come back with a notice of proposed rulemaking where they actually have a formal regulation that they're trying to pass through. When they do that, they're not really asking for permission to put it into place, right? They're just asking for your responses, and they can choose whether or not to accept your responses. So this flavor really starts to point that they are very interested in having a ban. They are going to look in every conceivable way to make that happen. And our job as an industry is going to be looking to say, here's why that doesn't make sense. Here's the things that you are trying to circumnavigate that are not going to be helpful. And so this comes back to us talking about things like, we use the best equipment to save lives in search and rescue. We use the best equipment to find hot spots in fires to save resources and where we're going to expend our firemen to go chase a particular hotspot. So there's things that we need to think about in those responses that are going to clue these guys to say, yeah, maybe this wasn't such a good idea to ban in this particular fashion.
So we can maybe make them rethink that, because it seems like they're going to rethink it, give another one, rethink it, and then another one. It will be continually. It'll be legislative whack-a-mole for years to come.
Unfortunately, that is the case. Yeah,
it is sad. Now we're recording this in the last 7 seconds of the Biden administration. The new administration that's coming in, is that going to affect our universe adversely? What are your thoughts on that without getting too political?
I do think this is going to be adverse. So you have to understand that the new administration, they had already been around previously, right? So Trump was the one who input a 25% ban or 25% tariff on DJI drones back when he was in office first time around. Now he's talking about a 100% tariff instead of just 25. So your pocketbook is going to be paying for that new drone a little bit more because of those tariffs.
Can you comment on the drones that are flying around?
I do not see him coming in and saying, look, we want to get rid of the banned language or talk. I think if anything, he's lighting a fire under that.
Okay. So let's review, okay? The geofencing, you have to do an update. If you want to keep your geofencing, you can.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely.
You just don't do the firmware.
Do the update.
Just don't do the update. But I imagine people would want to. But then realize that there is a bit of responsibility that comes with doing the update, because then it's on you to not fly on the White House lawn or at the nuclear power plant.
Indeed. And, it's always been on you to do that, to make sure that you're in the right place.
That's right.
And
that's right.
So I think it just puts more on your shoulders to make certain 100%, because you're not going to have a geofence as a fallback.
Right.
So
the training wheels have been removed.
Mm-hmm.
And so learn the sectional charts. I say that, and it still makes me cross-eyed looking at the sectional charts, to be honest with you. Here's the sectional chart. I got this from remotepilot101.com. And there's a link, of course, in the description if you want to take that course and get your 107. It's a fun hobby. It's great. There's just a few things you have to be aware of. And that's the point of this video. And along those lines, I do want to mention that the United States kind of sets the pace for the rest of the world. They're watching us and what we're doing in this regard. I know there's one gentleman in New Zealand. His name is Bruce. Hey, Bruce. He's very upset about stuff that's going on half a world away, and we appreciate you, sir. but he's very passionate. We need more passion in this hobby, and in a positive way. Now, the other thing that we want to review is the ban, the sneaky backdoor ban that is happening through, what'd you say, the commerce angle?
Department of Commerce, yeah.
Yeah.
And take your time, read through it's long, I'm sorry, but it is 50 questions. Go through that document, first and foremost, through all their preamble stuff to understand where they're coming from, right? You're going to get a real sense that they absolutely want to ban all Chinese drones, all Chinese equipment. So they're already putting you on the defensive if you have most any drone, right? So make that consideration when you start to read those questions and jot down your thoughts. You're welcome to even send them to me. It's my last name at comcast.net. So Lottered at comcast.net. I will include those things in my talking point reviews. So it'll help other operators understand, here's how we can answer these questions.
Yeah. And don't think the government won't do it. As I stream this through my Huawei router. Because there is precedent for banning Chinese products.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anything else you want to talk about other than the fact that remote ID is dead and gone and nobody's using it?
Well, everybody says that, and yet I want to tell you a story here.
Okay.
In major events especially, you might not realize it, but there are officers out there with mobile units looking at all the drones that are in operation.
Oh.
They can discover quite quickly rogue operations. And you may not be getting flagged down for that right away. A lot of it is collecting information for the FAA, collecting information for their elected officials to help in deciding what to do. But yeah, you're literally on their radar, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's not been something that a lot of people are saying is active and being used, but behind the scenes it is. And I can say that having worked with Michigan State Police and seeing that in process.
Okay. So I would say to my FPV friends, just have a module in your bag, for plausible deniability. And be like, oh, well, there should have been one on that drone. Maybe it fell off. Yeah. All right, let's end on a positive note. What do you think the drone-overse will be like in 5 years? Where are we in 5 years with regard to ban, geofencing, DJI's presence in our economy, and laws?
I think in the near term, the geofencing hurts the drone community. That is a big concern that I have.
Yeah.
In the long term, things will square out and will be fine. In terms of whether DJI is a part of that, I suspect they will be. At the same token, the language of the Commerce Department advance notice of proposed rulemaking is a very big concern towards that goal. Overall, I do believe that as a community, we've got to come together even more in the coming years to fight back against local regulation, because I do see that is going to be the next big battlefield, and I mean big battlefield.
And you are on that battlefield.
I try to be every day.
And you're trying to set precedent, and you're fighting these ridiculous regulations. And how can we help you help us?
Well, yeah. So from a standpoint of fighting, it's always going to take money. And I hate to say that, but that's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
I'm pleased to say that we did have our organization, the Michigan Coalition of Drone Operators, finally become a 503c corporation, which means we can start to accept donations, which is huge. So it's not just, hey, I'm going to be making a donation of $50 for nothing.
Right.
Now you could say, hey, I'm making a $50 donation and I can write that off on my taxes.
Bingo. Yes.
So that's huge.
That is big.
At the same token, I do want to see that span out nationally so that we aren't just a Michigan group doing things on a national level, but we can be a national group doing things on a state-by-state level. So that's coming forward, but the idea is look to see if you can donate to the organization. Again, with everything that we talk about, is always advocate for drones, right? Be the person that educates, be the person who stands up and is a model citizen and sharing the experience that you have versus, shouting some officer down, confronting a Karen in a negative way. We can build this community with positivity.
Absolutely. Unicorns and rainbows, I say.
There you go.
Yes. Yes. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being in our corner, sir. Always.
Thank you. And I appreciate talking about it.
All right. See you later, bud.
We'll see ya.
This video lovingly sponsored by RemotePilot101.com. If you are serious about making money with your drone, whether it be photography or FPV, well, then you're going to need from the FAA a 14 CFR Part 107 certification. And the best place to study for that certification is RemotePilot101.com. Jason Shepard is a pilot and author of 8 best-selling aviation flight training books. And yes, taking tests suck, especially government tests. But Jason breaks it down into 10 easy lessons into little digestible pieces that even someone like me can learn from. And if I can do it, you can do it, by golly. Each lesson is streamlined. There's no fluff. Everything you need to know for the test and nothing more. Plus, it's regularly updated, so if something new comes out, a new regulation, or the FAA just has a mood swing, Jason will let you know about it. As more and more drones are integrated into the United States airspace, the FAA will be coming out with more and more regulation, including things like remote ID and all the other crazy things you've been hearing about. So protect yourself, get the knowledge, become a Part 107 certified drone operator. There's never been a better time to get certified, so get the smarts you need to pass that test at RemotePilot101.com. Use Heron 18 to get 30% off. That knocks the price down to $104. Look at that! Boom! Magic time! You wouldn't drive without a driver's license. Don't fly without a UAS license. RemotePilot101.com.